Hello everyone. Welcome to the video HRB on Books. We are going to discuss today about a very interesting topic which is perfect job. You applied for a job but there was no call. You know what this is called? Resume black hole. And we are going to discuss this in detail and I'm sure that you are going to find some valuable insights in this. So, what we are going to cover is why rejection, the candidate experience, recruiter experience, why rejection happens, and how can you actually crack the selection code, wherein I'm going to share some tips to crack it. So, let's begin. Let's get into the shoes of Arav, who has actually applied for a job. I applied, I was qualified, I never heard back. Now, this isn't rejection, it is silence. Now, what happens is now Arav wonders and he's wondering, did my resume actually reach the recruiter? You need to understand the candidate's story here. What happens? You know what candidates experience? He or she can apply for 30 or 50 applications on different job portals, though having good and strong skills, experience, but even in spite of that, there are zero responses. What it leads to? It leads to self-doubt, frustration, which can eventually leads to confusion. Why confusion? Because the candidate starts wondering, if I am qualified, what went wrong? And hence, it is important to understand the other side of the story. Maybe the candidate is thinking that my resume has actually landed on recruiter's desk, but let's look at the recruiter. Meet the recruiter Ria, whose desk is actually flooded with resume, and we are not sure where Arav CV actually is floating. You need to understand that what is actually going behind the scene. You know what happens behind the scene? For that, we need to look at this image. I want you to look at the right hand side of the image first so that we understand that what happens to these CVs. When multiple job applications are actually applied for a job application opportunity, then these multiple CVs are actually passed through something called ATS. Now, what is ATS? ATS is an application tracking software which actually screens and filters out the CVs. So you can say that out of 100 CVs, maybe 5 to 7 CVs will be filtered out, which will be actually seen by the recruiter. So can you imagine not looking at the left hand side that your resume actually didn't reach a human? Safely assuming that 90% of the resumes are screened by ATS, recruiter never got to see them. Does it mean for you as a candidate that it is a rejection? Could be, but it doesn't definitely mean that it is lack of capability, because what happens is that most resumes fail before even reaching the first human glance, which is very sad, right? And hence we are going to look at that how can we solve this problem as a candidate. Now, you know you need to treat ATS as a gatekeeper, which is ATS as a filter and not a villain. And to crack this game, you need to master the rules of this game, which is what ATS does and how companies are training ATS to do a filtering job. ATS actually scans for keywords, job titles, skills, and formatting, and hence the match score is being calculated accordingly. So if your resume is getting passed and ATS is not ATS is giving you a low match score, that means your CV will not reach the recruiter. Now, let me give you more examples. We are going to share multiple examples for you so that you can understand this very, very clearly. Look at the left hand side. We see that there are great humans, but then poor resumes. Why do we say that? Fancy designs, tables and columns, icons, graphics, and generic summaries. These look very beautiful when it comes to resume on the prima facie. However, when it passes through ATS, it actually filters it out because it doesn't find a clean structure, doesn't find clear text, doesn't have readability, and keyword relevance is not there. Because design heavy resumes confuse machines, and my dear friends, please understand that ATS is a software and not a human. Now, please note that your resume is not a poster. Hence, you need to understand that you have to treat like it as a search document, which means increase the readability, clear document, relevance, and aesthetic. Resumes are written for software before humans. We are going to look at some of the examples wherein you see that on the left hand side there is a CV or resume with table and multiple columns, right? On the right hand side, we see another CV very similar to this in terms of the same candidate, but then a cleaner structure. You know, the second one is preferred by the ATS, and ATS will give a much higher score for the right hand side of the CV. Let's look at another example wherein we see that on the left hand side we have a candidate's CV with a generic summary, highly motivated, result oriented professional with a strong background in various areas. Now, what is the problem with this? It's very, very generic. ATS is not able to find anything which is actually tailored to the job description, hence will give you a low score. However, on the second hand side, in the right hand side, we see that the same candidate, when you align your summary to the job description, you gives a better one, which is result driven marketing manager with a 6 years of experience developing and executing data driven campaigns and skilled in SEO, which means a much better one and a higher score. Let's look at another one wherein example wherein we see one pager CV and a multiple pager. Of course, the one pager CV is something which is being liked by ATS and will give you a higher score. Now the question is it possible to concise everything in one pager? Yes, of course it is possible if you stick to the rules of the game. Now, what I'm going to tell you is that there are simple tips to crack the selection code. This slide is very important and I'm going to give all the tricks in this slide. You need to keep it very, very simple. Single column layout, standard fonts, Arial or Calibri, no tables, icons or graphics, so that it is very, very readable. Match the job keywords to increase the relevance, and that's why we say that you have to mirror the exact skills from JD. Use clear and job specific terms. Avoid any creative wording. Typically people, when they go for creative wording, I mean most of the CVs, that's what we see, it actually lands up in a low ATS score. Use standard headings: work experience, skill, education and certifications. Don't use any fancy headings. Use the right type file. Now why do we say that? Sometimes we have also seen that people do upload some image based resumes which are not preferable. Please prefer .docs or .pdf. Add a clear skill section, which is very, very important, because you know that today we are in a world wherein skill is the currency, and ATS are also being trained to list the core skills from the job. You have to write it for the machine first and then impress the human next. Please keep that in mind as a tip when you are actually writing your CV. I hope that you will be able to follow these tips to modify your resume, which will definitely help you in excelling the master game. Now, if you follow this, then we'll see that there is the same candidate, but there is a different outcome. Earlier, there was low ATS match, there was no callback. However, if you follow this, then you are going to have a higher match score and the recruiter shortlist as well. What happened? The resume changed, but the candidate didn't. And that's why we say that be seen even before you are judged. Because if ATS can't read your resume, then recruiters never will. I hope that you would have found this video valuable. See you in the next video. Thank you.